All right, sorry about that. Welcome everybody to the IMAUG presentation for the 22nd. As always, feel free to connect with us on Meetup. We have a Slack. All of our recordings are posted here on YouTube. And so if you miss any, want to refer back to them or forward it to a colleague or anything, they should all be there. Want to say thank you to our sponsors today. Source Allies is our platinum. We did get a new one since our last meeting of Lean Techniques, and also Lozano Tech. Thank you for that. And today's topic will be migrating large applications to Azure with cast highlights, and I will hand that over to you guys.
Do you want to kick it? Oh, I say, Bobby, do you want to go ahead and take it on right away?
I can, and if it's okay, I will go ahead and share my screen here as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Carla, can everyone see my my screen here?
Yep,
I can see.
We are good.
Okay. So what I want to do is really quickly just introduce myself and our participants on today's call. I'm not going to go deep into these introductions, but my name is Bobby Trivedi. I am the head of professional services at ACTS. I have a 20+ year career in information technology. I've been with large organizations like GE, ran digital transformation at Citigroup, was a line of business CIO at the Nielsen Company, and for the last 7 years, I've been in executive consulting. Sean Pickett, I don't know if he's going to be on today. I know he had a conflict that I wasn't sure if he could join, but he is one of our CIO advisors. Sean has an incredibly deep background in helping our customers move their data centers and their workloads over to Azure and to do it very cost effectively. And of course, last but not least is James Farhat, our CEO. So James is interesting because he is our CEO. He's an amazing leader for our organization, and as much as it frustrates me and my team, he might be one of our strongest architects. So he's going to be on in a little bit to do a demo of this product that we're going to introduce you all to. Is called Cast. Before I do that, I just want to make sure you know who we are as a partner. So ACTS is about 25, 26 years old. It was founded in Jacksonville, Florida, and has been providing technology consulting services throughout the entire duration. Throughout that entire time, we've always had a really strong affinity with Microsoft. So even before all of these gold certifications and you were a training partner, that's where ACTS was. So we've been a partner with Microsoft since the inception of Azure. We've been working on Microsoft products, services, Dynamics, you name it, for a very long time. We have customers that rank, across dozens of industries. We have Fortune 100s. We have startups. So we help our customers wherever they are in their journey, whatever size they are. We're proud to be an award-winning Microsoft partner. So we've won industry awards, but also Microsoft awards for data and AI and Azure Influencer. And of course, we have certified practitioners within every one of our practices. Just two stats on the right, I'll point out. One is, across all US partners, we are in the top 1% in driving Azure consumption. So while we may not be one of the largest consulting organizations, we certainly are working with some of the largest customers and helping them be successful on that migration. And then the one that we might be most proud of is our 92% customer repeat rate. So, our approach is to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with our customers. And we're not going to do that if we end up behaving poorly or, employing any of the tactics that I'm sure you have all seen. So with that, right, so as a consulting firm, we have always been in the process of helping our customers move their footprint from on-premise to within the cloud. And then as you're making that journey, you also have this process of modernizing, optimizing, doing it more intelligently, so you're taking advantage of the way that Microsoft sets up their IaaS and PaaS services. And so a few years ago, we became a partner with this software product called Cast. And we thought this product was a bit of a game changer because it essentially, accelerated the work that we do for our customers. And James caught on to this early, and he said, Bobby, let's accelerate it, because if we don't, others will. And this is absolutely the right thing to do for our customers. So when I think about it, right, if you all come from application development, application portfolio management backgrounds, there's always been these projects that you want to embark on. Like, what is all the code we need to refactor? How do we do a security threat, mitigation plan? How do we modernize this application in a series of sprints? And the way you went and collected that data was you would send developers to go and collect it individually. But of course, that is an extremely tedious task. They're probably not going into every line of code and file, and what they're coming back with, while best efforts, is probably not a full view of your software. So there's this product that we ran into called Cast, and their analogy is that they do an MRI for your software system, and that MRI is going to give you a tremendous amount of insights and objectivity on exactly what is within your application. It doesn't replace your developers and your need for architects. It empowers them with really, really valuable information, and it empowers leadership to be managing their platforms at a portfolio level. So, what kinds of things are you getting out of Cast? And again, in a little bit, James is going to join us to demo, but you can get blueprints of your architecture, right? You're going to get a bunch of flaws, quality grades, and benchmarks based on a number of, in a number of categories, including security and software elegance and efficiency, maintainability. You can get sizing metrics around how long might it take to remediate and modernize some of the recommendations that they're making. One of the really, interesting ones, I'm sure we've all seen products that do scans of application code, although we think no one goes as deeper and as wide as Cast. But one of the ones that I have never seen before is Cloud Readiness. So again, you want to migrate, and you could be looking at, hey, I've got one really large specific application to migrate, or I've got a portfolio of 100 applications. Tell me which ones are closer to ready versus further away. It's going to give you these readiness scores. So just a wealth of information that you're going to get in this product. The way Cast is structured is it has three, and it's actually more, but we can, for introductory purposes, you can view it as three different applications or tools. The first is Highlight, and Highlight is used more from a portfolio analysis. So, if you want to, scan all of your finance applications, and you might have 50, 60, applications within a large enterprise, it's going to scan it, and it's going to give you all of these, charts and graphs and ability to drill down all the way down to a recommendation that they're making. But again, it's coming at it from a portfolio level. And it's, again, going to give you a wealth of information. You may get to a point where you say, okay, I really want to get into these 2 or 3 applications, and you want a deeper level of analysis. You want deeper level of insights, and you want to actually begin getting assistance on your architecture and visualizing sort of the architecture you're putting together moving forward. So this is where Cast AIP is one product, and the other is Cast Imaging. So is Carla, is James on?
Not yet. I don't see him. I'll ping him.
All right, you may want to ping him and let him know he's up in a couple minutes. But You know, this is a scan that we actually did for a customer with Microsoft through the solution assessment program. And if you're not familiar with the solution assessment program, it's a very exciting program that we're proud to be a part of, where we help our customers do what we would say are short but very impactful assessments that help them put them on their journey, whether it's migrating entire data centers or moving to Dynamics, or in this case, figuring out how to move and modernize applications. So, you know, this is like the highlight portfolio view. And, you know, in this one, we only scan 3 different applications, but you're going to get, you know, all of these scores on, you know, how is your product from software resiliency, right? How is the software agility? What is, you know, the elegance score on that software? There's security threats that, you know, we haven't put on this one. There's cloud readiness. And cloud readiness is a really interesting one because it tells you all of the blockers and boosters that you have to migrating a platform as a service. There's open source, right? Do you have vulnerabilities because your developers have incorporated third-party open source technology into your product? So, you know, all of these, you know, this was a high-level summary, but then you get down to, you know, this level, right? And this is where we would have our architects and our customer architects, but we literally went through these cloud blockers and we said, you know, how many of these do we have? Well, you know, you got a lot of hard-coded URLs within, you know, within the code base, and you know there were a substantial number of them, right? You're performing directory manipulation. There were 2 of those, and those are a little bit higher, right? Unsecured data stream. Well, that one might be a really high, you know, security issue. So, you know, you're getting down to this level of detail. And again, you can even click on these. I can't right now, but in the system you can, and it gives you the remediation. You know, here's another level where it's getting down to, you know, exactly what component are these, you know, violations found in, right? And again, I can click here and then get the recommendations on what to do for them. And then, you know, here's another one, and this is like third-party license risks, right? So, you know, how many components did they find? You know, how many are high, medium, and low risk? And again, right, as I come back to this journey that you're on, it's giving you all of this objective data. It's giving it to you in what I would say are very rich interactive dashboards that you can utilize within the product. And it's giving you that objective view. So it's kind of funny because I actually come from a BI and data background. And for years, we've been providing sales and finance and operations with their dashboards and reports and analytics. What CAST is doing is empowering IT organizations to do the same. So not only is it helping you migrate your data centers, it might help you migrate an individual application, helping you modernize an individual application, or even doing portfolio level management, like managing how teams are developing within sprints, or managing how different vendors are performing within your organization. So I think, Carla, you were about to tell me, is James on?
Yes, actually he is here. So James, are you here? I think you're on mute.
I'm here. Are we ready?
We're ready.
We are ready for you to take over the demo. I'm going to stop sharing and then you can start sharing.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bobby. I just want to let everybody know CAST is an amazing tool, and we use it to synthesize. And you know, my background is both architecture and infrastructure. I've been around the Microsoft space for 25 years. And when I came to find this tool called CAST, it really basically allowed me to provide visibility to make better decisions faster. So we've been doing app modernization for about 6 years. We've taken both from a greenfield perspective to legacy applications and all kinds of different technologies and development, and had to figure out how do we prescribe and make changes for our customers in a very quick way to modernize. And a lot of times it becomes very difficult because you have all of these different flat files from a source code perspective. There's a lot of things that have happened amongst multiple developers. So it's not always easy to understand how you surmise success. So CAST is a tool that allows you, and I'm sure Bobby spoke a good bit about this, to look at it from a helicopter to jungle view. So the highlight, that starts with H like helicopter, is how we highlight all of our applications, and we have 218 onboarded applications here, how we inventory them and look at their software health, their cloud readiness, and their security risks, okay? And so it reads the source code and the database code and the DDL to tell us, hey, your software needs to be more resilient. These are the things you need to do. It needs to be more agile. You need to understand and maintain your software in a better way. Or the complexity, which is elegance, okay? And it scores your applications, and it tells you the number of FTEs. So there's a talent alignment piece along with a qualitative and quantitative piece around resilience, agility, and elegance. Now, if you look here in these 218 applications, there's many of them here. It tells you the number of files, how many FTEs, lines of code, and there's
something.
You're not sharing yet.
Oh, it hasn't shared? I hit sharing.
No, it hasn't shared out yet.
You mean I've been talking and it hasn't shared? How
Not yet.
embarrassed am I?
There we go.
I guess I should have looked for the red line at the top. My bad. So if you look here, back to the beginning, let's take it from the top. Cast highlight, take 2. So if you look here, this dashboard gives me software health, cloud readiness, and open source safety. And I've scanned 218 onboarded applications, okay? 209 are inventory. What I was talking about in terms of resiliency, how resilient, how agile in regards to maintaining my software or the code complexity, those are scored here on an axis, okay? And then it lists all of my applications from a portfolio. So think about it, this is a very helicopter look. It tells me lines of code, files, and I'll go into some of the other details, FTEs. But let me go into one particular application. I'm going to go into Blue Sky. So we're going to go from the helicopter, go into the jungle, and we're going to look at one portion of the jungle called Blue Sky, which is a .NET application and SQL application. Now understand, I support more than just .NET and SQL. And I'm going to show you something here. I also support, C, C++, Fortran, COBOL, WCF, a number of technologies, and even more than these. This is just I also do Cold Fusion, .NET Core, but this gives you a good idea of what we do support, okay? So if you look here, I have qualitative questions, like what's the business impact? Or what's the software maintenance estimate? What's the application property? So as an enterprise architect or even an infrastructure lead or a CTO, it's important to be able to look at both the qualitative information along with what these are, which is the quantitative, right here at the top, health distribution code insights. So the code insights piece that I'm going to show you shows me based on technology that resilience, agility, and elegance. So if I want to know how to make my application more resilient, it's going to tell me this permission checker, I've got an issue here that's, creates me a problem. I need to use curly braces to make it less error prone. So it gives me things from a resilience perspective, agility, and elegance. I could spend hours on this, but I think you guys kind of get the point. It's going to give me code insights both for C# and T-SQL, how to write cleaner code, quality code, okay? The thing that's most compelling is this cloud ready. We have this cloud ready qualitative piece, but here's the part that people get super excited about, and this is the Azure users group. So let me show you what this does. Our goal is to take things that are infrastructure modernization, which is lift and shift, and how do we get a platform modernization? So if you look here, it says using COM components. Well, we know in Azure Resource Manager, I can't use it in Azure App Service or necessarily in container if I'm using COM components, right? So it tells me what C# files I need to change the reference from a COM component to another type of component that's supported, and it tells me 8 person days. It'll also give me database modernization. Go change these 2 T-SQL files. It's going to take me 0.25 days to change this function that works on SQL on-premise, but not in Azure SQL. I'm going to pause there. Any questions? No? Okay, great. So this gives me basically a prescriptive element of all the changes I need to make to code to move to platform as a service, to move to if I look at recommendations, to Azure App Service and Azure SQL, this application. So instead of having to look at files or trial and error, this looks at the code and says, this is what you got to change to platform modernize your application. And then if you want to containerize it, not running an Azure App Service, but you want to run it in AKS or in some other type of container runtime, this is going to tell you the changes you got to make to containerize it and where the blockers are.
From like a project management perspective, since it puts some rough guesstimation on times, are you able to like put that out into some sort of roadmap for like DevOps or other tools?
That's a great question. So yes, so this integrates with your CLI, with the CLI in DevOps, okay? And you can automate with APIs to go back into your Azure DevOps or any type of whatever you do to manage people, Kanban boards or whatever, to go reconcile these and run trends every time you do a build or a release. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And today, people like Wells Fargo, BNY Mellon, AT&T, they use this for developer productivity. Some of them are starting to use it for app modernization. And then, of course, it tells you, if you look here, software composition, you know, a lot of times if you're in regulated or even non-regulated and you're a public company, you have to go figure out, how am I going to make sure that I have safe software to go up into the cloud? So it's going to give you open source safety. It's going to give you all your CVEs and CWEs. So it helps you manage the vulnerability management and the audit for moving to the cloud. How do you like those apples? Pretty cool, huh? And so you can look at all of your severe, high severity vulnerabilities, so you can fix them before you go to the cloud, and you can put this in your Kanban board. And you could do that on an application portfolio basis or on a single application. It'll also give you your CWEs. Now, let's say you want to look at how your applications are all tied together, okay? So you can understand the relationships between the application, either by API, FTP, SOAP. You can also analyze that in your portfolio. Another thing from a security perspective that people really like is what's called the keyword scan. So it'll use regular expressions to tell you where you might have GDPR issues, CCPA issues, and it reads the source code. We find hard-coded passwords, and it will give you a score of where the occurrences are. So you can keep up with where PII is from a code perspective or any type of regulatory requirement you might have. Any questions so far?
What's the biggest project you've scanned with this?
1 billion lines of code. The Neil, our COE cast, has done a 1 billion line of code application, and he finished his results in 30 days. This saves you about 50 to 80% of the time. So I went through the application portfolio rationalization. To me, that's really cool, but that's not the magic. You want to see the magic? I'm going to show you the magic, okay? So we just showed this to a customer earlier this morning. We run this for a lot of large companies. One of the things that this will do in small companies is it will read the code and it will give you a nothing else in the world does this. This is the only product that does what I'm about to show you. This is a .NET application. What I'm going to show you, this is called imaging. So how many of you have had an MRI? Put your hands up. Nobody here has had an MRI? Wow, that shocks me. I've had an MRI. So when you go, oh, Derek's had an MRI. So Derek, you don't have to give us any medical, but I'm sure you got a knee done or, you know, something, okay? Think of this as an MRI for software. So if you look here, I have my app info. I want you to look at this taxonomy right here very carefully. It says abstracted service levels, level number 1, service level 2, concept level 3, technology framework 4, object type level 5. You with me? So now if I want to go in and I want to double click, so you see user action to service to data services, and I double click and I say web interaction, logic services, database services. This is level 2. So I went from an abstracted service level that said, oh, that was a user interaction, to a service level that says it's a web interaction. Okay, a business service to a logic service. Let me go down one more. So now I've got to a concept level. That web interaction was a web presentation layer. Okay, that went to business logic. So it split this logic service and said, you know what, there's two concepts really going on here. There's a business logic concept and there's a data access service concept. What it's doing is it's grouping the code and organizing it in a visual representation. And I'll tell you why in just a second. Let me go down one more. Now it's telling me technology and framework. So that web interaction is HTML presentation, JavaScript, ASPX, to C# business logic. So you remember the business logic part. The data access is DAO. So now it's telling me what technology and framework I'm using. Let's go down to the object level. Now it tells me all the way to the object level. So you see that I can see the relationship from what happens on the screen to what happens from an application perspective to the database, okay? And if you look here in the business logic, it's all in this C# class. So what do you think these references are? These are different operations and methods calling the data access object to get to the database. So if I go click on this from a C# class perspective, it's going to show me all of the business logic in the application. That's why it's called B-logic. So I could decouple the C# class if I wanted to move this to a microservices application. How do I do that? So now I showed you from a top-down approach at the application level. But when we build microservices, okay, and you could do other things like we're fixing performance issues for customers before they go to the cloud. We have one customer that has a whole bunch of Java and SQL using JDBC. We found all kinds of issues with round robins and looping and not closing sessions that create performance and scalability issues. But I also have the ability to look at it from a transaction perspective, from the screen all the way to the database, okay? So if you look here, everything that happens on the screen when someone hits add article, add category, it's going to show me a representation visually of what's really going on and what objects are happening in the relationships with those objects and which ones are input or output. So how do I design microservices? I can look at both the transactional set and the data call graph set. So I can look at it from a transaction perspective from the screen of clicking something or adding button, hitting an add button, to what happens in the data call graph. How do you like those apples? With those two things, I can do business rule extraction to figure out how I'm going to use both business and performance to basically do microservices patterns. Okay. There's nothing else that does this today for app modernization. The other area outside of decoupling a microservice could be fixing performance issues to scale it to the cloud, to a platform service. And then from a security perspective, I have the ability, I'm just going to show you, look at the architecture from a security perspective. So a lot of times the CISO might ask the developers to build a security diagram. This will automatically do it for you. Or if you're in the DB team, you want to go look at a database architecture, it will give you a database architecture of the whole database on the fly, or the data access layer. So I'll pause there. I can show you a lot more, but I want to pause. I gave you a lot to think about and see if you guys have some thoughts around modernization you're using today and how you could see CAST helping accelerate. Any questions?
Quiet group.
What, Derek?
It's a quiet group.
Yeah, they are. Are they all developers or infrastructure?
I think it ranges.
That ranges. Some of the developers, have you ever seen tools like this?
I have.
Go ahead.
I have not.
Are you? So do you do? What kind of development do you do?
Usually cloud first. So this is a little bit of a switch going from on-prem to the cloud. So I don't use like these kind of scanning tools very often? Or
So
really?
we also support functions. We support Cosmos DB. We support all cloud native also. So we can read
Yeah.
the code there too.
I mean, you could look at taking it from a monolithic cloud application into a, microservice architecture based system.
So this will scan stuff that's already out in the cloud as well. So not even just an on-prem system to start with. It can be a cloud system that you then are decomposing.
Oh yeah. You want me to show you? I'll show you our roadmap. It's actually, let me show you something here. Okay. We support native Azure services. So let me show you here. Give me 1 second. And most all of these are done now, but we support native Cosmos DB, blob storage, development that's native cloud out of the box. So I'm going to show you that. You're one of the few. Like we have some, we definitely have cloud native folks, but there's a lot of more people trying to get there. You know what I mean? What company do you work for?
I work at Growers Edge. We're a startup here in Des Moines. So that's probably why, because we're newer and just built for the cloud to start with.
So if you look here, we do Azure functions both for Java and JavaScript. We just finished. These are coming out in the next month for .NET Core. We do blob storage. So these are all the things natively we can scan, cloud native.
Sweet.
So yes, it'll work with that. Arun, you have a question? Oh, I thought you had mute off. Any other questions? So let me show you something else. Now that we finished that. So the thing that balances between technical debt and agility is getting rid of technical debt. So you can't drive agility unless you get rid of technical debt. So what I'm going to show you is something that I think you'll find interesting. Okay, can you guys see my screen here?
Yep.
So the same data I showed you in imaging, one is not your name. What's your real name, your first name?
I'm Alec.
Alec, okay. With a C, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So if you look here, I have the ability to look at robustness, efficiency, security, changeability, transferability. I can even look at green IT, meaning if I have ESG standards and I want to reduce the amount of compute, I can. But this one is interesting. This is called technical debt, which one of you were asking me, how do I get those numbers? Okay. So I'm going to go into this e-commerce application. If you look here, I have literally, there's a standard called OMG, which is an international standard. But if you look here, it will tell me, like if you look at my largest technical debt, it's in object level dependencies, which makes a lot of sense, right? So it's going to tell me what I need to change to get rid of this technical debt. It'll actually give me context, about this in my engineering dashboard. I can go specifically to what's called engineering. I can show you that in a second. But it'll tell me where the debt code is. So it looks at all of this using AI and rules to drive how much effort it's going to take me to get rid of all the technical debt. Now, let's be honest. You're not going to go get rid of all of these days. But what it does allow you to do is go prioritize what you should go after versus not. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then because it reads the source code and uses AI, it'll tell me how complex it is for transferability to transfer resources, right, to certain applications. All of this feeds from another technology called engineering, which has a lot of detail and specificity that we could go through today, but I think it's a little bit overwhelming. And we generally use only for certain cases. If you look here, everything I showed you is extensible. So what I mean by that is we have extenders on our team that write these things, they can write them. If you look here, like if I want to move from .NET to .NET Core, I can use this .NET Analyzer, and it's going to tell me all the changes I need to move it to .NET Core and how long it's going to take. So you can add these extenders into the application and use them to help you for all kinds of things. Cassandra, Blackboxing, JE Analyzer, AngularJS to scan all of your AngularJS code. Let's say you want to do it for data stage, if you have a whole bunch of data stage. What if I want to move from Oracle to Postgres? It'll do Progress. It does Siebel, PeopleSoft. And you can write your own extenders if you like to use the same technology. And the way that those are built, if I show you, we build them based on rules. So if you look here, we have rules. So these rules, when we write them, we can extend and create our own rules. These are the ones that come out of the box. Or those extenders have their own rules. They analyze the code and then trigger, that rule was met or not met. Does that make sense? They also wrap into indexes. So we can do OWASP, right? So if I want to know OWASP, if something meets OWASP 2021, it'll let me know as a standard. PCII is also supported. So a lot of banks and insurance companies use this today. So I'm going to finish up with any questions or thoughts. Could any of you see yourself using this technology?
I think from the security scanning standpoint, it seems cool, knowing what kind of standards you're may or may not be following, or migrating on-prem seems like a pretty good use case too.
Yeah, migrating on-prem is what we use this mainly for. And a lot of times it's either a performance issue or someone has a blocker, or they need their developers to really understand what they have to modernize it, if that makes sense. So, and we also have an ability, we have a program with Microsoft called Solution Assessment, where we can run this for you to give you analysis prior to moving one or multiple applications to the cloud. And Derek can speak to that.
You have multiple customers that are doing solution assessments today with this tool. So.
And some of them are large insurance companies, banks, railroad. But
is that because of the scanning it can do for like those audits, or what I guess, is there a reason that those industries fit this model better than others?
All industries fit the model. We have all kinds of others. I'm just giving you some that are top of mind. The number one reason people use this is it saves 50 to 80% of the time with the visibility for you to make decisions and make changes and lay out a roadmap.
I have one customer that has a $2 billion e-commerce system that is on-prem today. 256 servers, I think that it consists of, that they're looking at moving into Azure. The typical way for that would have been like a lift and shift, just on-prem to VMs in Azure, but they're looking at trying to do modernization and potentially go to a microservice architecture down the road. So they're using this tool to do this scan and look at moving the paths and then how they can modernize to microservices after that.
Gotcha. And who's typically in your experience, like, is this usually like a C-suite or somebody like an architecture of the whole company brings these in, or who's typically pulling the trigger? Because is it usually like
We've had presidents and CEOs to head of enterprise architecture to CTOs.
Gotcha.
Sometimes the developer.
Okay. So it's usually it's usually for like I want the overall view of my whole company though, not like I'm moving a single app. Is that
Right. Well, sometimes it's a single app. Like I have one customer that has a very specific core banking app, and they feel like there's challenges in moving it to the cloud for certain reasons. So we're going just to fix that problem so it could be cloud-based.
I actually have an engagement right now with ACTS for a customer that's doing a single app with this.
Gotcha. So there is value if you have a complicated like single app to potentially doing this to move it to the cloud.
Right.
Cool.
Anybody have any questions for James? Go ahead, James. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, we definitely have a program that helps fund this for you guys, and actually Microsoft pays for the licensing for 3 months, and we can do the work, and it'll help give you that summation of how we get there.
And you said the billion lines of code scan took about 30 days. What is your what is the average?
No, the scan only takes like a couple of days. It's the analysis and writing out the report.
Okay. How, and is that pretty typical, or what does the analysis usually take?
Depends on the complexity, but it's generally 4 or 6 weeks.
Okay.
Worst case.
Cool.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Arun.
So is the subscription tier matters during the migration?
What now?
I mean, like, is there Azure subscription matter? What kind of subscription we have to implement?
In Azure,
Yes,
it doesn't matter.
any kind of tier is applicable.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's what more matters is the application. Is the application on premise or in Azure?
Okay.
Yeah, we're scanning the source code, so that doesn't matter.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts? Anybody interested in us following up with them?
I'd say, James, I did post here on the, I'm sharing out too, that the links to the solutions, our solutions assessment. And then if they want some additional information too, they can request a meeting. And I'll also put my contact information here in the chat box if you have additional questions.
Or you're always welcome to contact the user group, either Alec or I or any of us, and we'll make sure that contact gets over to Carl and team.
Are there any other questions? I think that might conclude it from our part. So, Derek, I do want to thank you and, the Microsoft organization for not only the partnership, but also for the opportunity to help you support the local Azure community. So obviously we're very big advocates of the Azure services, and anything that we can do to help support and accelerate in the Azure, we're happy to help out.
Well, thanks a lot for presenting this today. So if that's it, I'll go ahead and stop the recording. If anybody has any last minute questions they want to ask off recording, now is the time to